Hey everyone, welcome back to the Your Money Your Life podcast, episode 286 of the podcast. Before we get into it, like, subscribe, 5-star rate, and review this podcast like we do every week. We drop episodes every week. And today we're going to talk a little bit about current events. Of course, we always get into it. We'll talk about the market and we'll do a roundtable discussing something that I like to call just like entrepreneurship, tips for entrepreneurs, things that you guys should be practicing. Tips for creatives as well. There's a lot of creative entrepreneurs out there, and how they get through things is a lot of times themselves. They're independent worker themselves, so we have to give tips and tricks to help these folks out as well. Let's dive into the first thing, which is going to be our market update. So we'll share screen for our viewing audience on YouTube. We're going to share our screen. We're going to allow you guys to see this market chart we try to go over every week. The market chart is again showing kind of a just a revisionist history, a look of the week, and also we're going to look at what I think going forward. But past 5 days for the market, up a little bit short of a percent in the past 5 days. Past month, 6.5%. Year to date, over seven. In the past year, strong, handily over 14%. So again, all positive, all green signs. We had the blip where people were trying to get to their freak out stage, but all positive signs. What is driving these positive markers for the market? One, the Nasdaq set another record, of course. Alphabet had strong earnings. Alphabet, formerly Google, strong earnings. And Alphabet is advancing 3% pre-market, at least at the time this article was written by CNBC. You also saw different companies that didn't do so well. IBM and Tesla were down after, for Tesla, their auto revenue fell for a second straight quarter. Their auto revenue fell for a second straight quarter. A growing company, their auto revenue fell. That's not a good sign for Tesla. Um, Investors have also turned their attention to the ongoing feud between the president and the Federal Reserve. The White House has said that President Donald Trump will visit the Federal Reserve on Thursday, and he's escalating his pressure campaign against Chairman Jerome Powell. So this is the first time in nearly 2 decades an American president will be making an official trip to the central bank because there are independent factions. The central bank is supposed to be independent of the government. And so that is kind of, really, really interesting to see. Apologies for the unresponsive page that keeps popping up for us. Jobless claims. So jobless claims, there's now been a total of 217,000. That was last week of initial filings for jobless claims. That was below the forecast. So that's positive news for job seekers. And then we have, some other smaller news. American Airlines, which we'll talk about them in our one of our business updates. Their shares dropped as well. So, the market's been quiet. There's nothing really crazy going on. The big thing is, you know, it's strong, right? Like we've had a strong so far to the year. We're halfway, a little bit over halfway through the year, and we've had a strong year. We had a blip in April and May, and the market's responding in kind. And that's what we've always said is to be long-term investors, you don't need to do a lot of tricky things. You need to be longer-term investors that have conviction. Like a lot of people don't have conviction on anything they do. They'll diet for 2 to 3 weeks. They'll try a business for 2 to 3 weeks. There's no conviction. And when you lack conviction, you won't see real gains. You won't realize any real reward because you're not staying in it long enough. And so that's of note. Nothing. It's all quiet on the market front. Nothing too crazy. Let's dive into news this week. There's a bit of it. I was curious. I didn't read much of the story, but Columbia University has agreed to pay $200 million fine in order to restore hundreds of millions in federal grants and contracts. The agreement comes months after the White House cut funding to the university, alleging that it failed to protect Jewish students during the Gaza protests last year. Since then, Columbia has laid off scores of staffers and its interim president resigned. So this is about Columbia has now agreed to pay a $200 million fine. I think this is for them to open up the lines of communication and receive their federal funding again. Don't know much about the story. I saw the headline, so I wanted to read it. I don't have much on that story, to be honest, but I do have much on this one. Tesla slump prompts Musk warning. So Tesla dropped 16% in automotive revenue. And Elon Musk was warning that there's going to be a few rough quarters until his robo-taxi business reaches scale. Tesla just posted its second straight quarter of declining sales, while deliveries sliding 14% and total revenue falling 12% to 22.5 billion. He said it's a challenging time for EVs as federal incentives will expire later this year. Musk is shifting focus to Tesla's robo-taxi program, which he expects to reach scale in the second half of 2026. So he said, okay, we're not going to be selling as many Tesla cars anymore. I mean, you got to point to him a little bit. He got involved in things that he maybe was losing his focus on Tesla, right? And so people, investors and shareholders, activist investors were saying, hey, focus on Tesla. You're one of your main companies. He has multiple companies, obviously, but one of your main public companies focus on Tesla. Um, and now he's saying, okay, we're not going to sell as many cars, but we are going to switch to this robo taxi program, meaning their autonomous driving program, which they're trying to catch Waymo, which Waymo is pretty prevalent in the West Coast, and the Southwest. And Tesla's robotaxi, I think, launched in Texas, and now they're trying to scale that by the second half of 2026. Again, I'm a proponent of robotaxis. I think I've told you guys I use Waymo, loved it. I'm a proponent of someone that would enjoy not always driving. I do like driving too, right? Recently driving again as we've moved to our new house, but I am also cool with having a robotaxi if I don't want to drive. So if he's going to scale that, I mean, he's been saying he was going to have the autonomous driving up for a while. He's pushed back his optimistic views on when it would be scaled several times, and now he's saying end of 2026. So he's pretty much saying he needs this because he sees actual car sales for Tesla going down, and them scaling via the robotaxi program. So it's just interesting. Hopefully that works. Again, he's one of the smarter people as far as business engineering minds in the history of the world, probably, honestly. And so you have to think it's going to work out, but you don't know for sure. And so we'll keep our eyes on it. But I'm bullish and optimistic that he'll figure out how to scale this. And again, he's one of the best at predicting what consumers are going to do. And he's highly optimistic that consumers are not going to want to drive and they're just going to want a robo-taxi, especially in larger cities, which he may 100% be right. Let's move on to Target. Target is sunsetting its price matching policy after 12 years. Hey, you remember the price match? Target said, hey, if you find a better price somewhere else, come in and we'll match that price. I've always heard it. It's all the commercials. I don't think I've ever used it. But they've had that policy for 12 years. But from July 28th, shoppers will no longer be eligible for reimbursement if an identical item is listed for cheaper by a rival retailer such as Amazon or Walmart. The switch comes at a vulnerable time for Target. They posted a nearly 3% year over year sales slump in the most recent quarter. Best Buy, Lowe's, and Home Depot are among the few big box stores that will boast price matching guarantees despite tariff increase in softer discretionary spending. So Target saying, hey, the softer discretionary spending means softer consumer spending. And there's tariffs, there's increased prices. We can't match every time you bring in something from a rival. We can't match it anymore. But the rivals are keeping it. But Target's saying they're going to cut it off. Is that um, some of the other rivals are going to do later because they also can't match prices and dig into margins to do so? So Target's taking the first step because it destroys the price matching was destroying profits. They're cutting into margin if you have to keep going lower and lower on the price. And if you don't have the logistics to make the price super low and to keep margin, it's going to hurt. So that's interesting. I'm actually curious if other big box retailers will do the same thing. We'll find out in short order. Uber, another larger company, billion-dollar company. Uber is planning to pair women drivers with riders. Starting next month, Uber will let women riders choose women drivers and vice versa. In the US, the new feature announced Wednesday will be tested first in Los Angeles, San Fran, and Detroit. It won't guarantee riders' preference, but rather increase the chances of women drivers and riders being paired up. Lyft introduced a similar option back in 2023. I didn't know that. Both companies have faced serious concerns and allegations about safety and receivers. I love this. You know, pairing women with driver with women riders is to me that makes sense. You don't want, especially late at night, I don't know, in college towns, women, driving and getting rides, not as coherent potentially. You want them to be safe, so you pair them up with another woman if there is a woman riding. But I think the issue they'll find is the supply of women drivers, but hopefully that incentivizes more women to be Uber drivers. You don't want to be picking up. They don't want to be picking up an unruly drunk man late at night either. So I like it. I didn't know Lyft already had this back in 2023. I wonder how that's worked out if they're able to have the match work based on supply and demand. But I think this is great. You just keep people safer, keep it more uniformed. I think that makes a lot of sense to me. Let's jump to home sales. We went from cars to home to what's next, but home sales slump as prices soar. The typical busy spring home sales season ended with a thud. As home prices reached a record high in June, mortgage rates climbed above 6.5%, and home sales dropped to a 10-month low. While home prices are falling in some parts of the country due to elevated industry inventory, nationally, the supply of homes remains below pre-pandemic levels. The cancellation rate for pending homes, meanwhile, hit 14.9%. June reportedly that's the highest level since 2017. So it's interesting dichotomy here. You have the housing industry is so interesting because there's definitely different parts and sectors of it. You have luxury, you have, regular houses, you have different areas of the country geographically. So again, it's so interesting how you look at it. But again, they're pretty much saying it's really a tough time for real. They had a boom. The real estate industry had booms. We saw it through 2020, probably until 2023, and maybe even a little bit 2024. And now you're seeing it slow down a bit. The prices are staying elevated, and because there's lack of supply. Lack of supply in some areas, but especially in the luxury area, lack of supply, you're allowing prices to stay elevated because the demand's still there, but there's just lack of supply. But I think the mortgage interest rate is what's hurting a lot of regular consumers from jumping into that market at this time. But this one person saying the pace of existing home sales is slowing, with June's annualized pace breaking below 4 million homes to 3.93 million, a 2.7% drop month over month. The last time we had a month pace at less than 4 million was in September of 2024. So this is interesting data that's becoming out in the housing. That's something to watch. The housing market is indicative of the overall consumer health and discretionary spending to a degree. So you want to keep an eye on that very, very closely. I thought this was interesting. I don't know how many people know who Eli Manning is, two-time Super Bowl champion quarterback for the New York Giants, retired, does a lot of production, does a lot production of shows and different things. Him and his brother Peyton, two of the best quarterbacks to ever play. But he just invested in a X Tech company. So a sports protective equipment maker, X Tech, that's the name of the company. He wore X Tech shoulder pads during his playing days, and he took stake in the company because he believes in the product and wants to make sure that young athletes have the same high level safety equipment that NFL players have. He said they've gone on to really dominate the NFL and college market from the shoulder pad standpoint, and he wants to help continue that journey as they explore into high school and expanding his this business. So he invested. He was at one time looking at investing in the Giants, but he did an interview, I think with CNBC or someone, saying that man, the valuations for sports teams have gotten so skyrocket that he doesn't want to give up that much liquidity to own a piece of the Giants. So, I mean, he just decided to put some of that liquidity into X Tech, which is quite interesting, and it makes sense. He knows this football really, really well. He's a professional. Is he in the Hall of Fame already? He's up, definitely probably a Hall of Fame quarterback. And now he's joining the X Tech Investor Consortium. So we'll keep an eye on Eli. Last story that I want to touch on, family office deal making. So if those aren't familiar, family offices are just a consortium of, if you're a wealthy person, you have a family office and you potentially in some capacity. That just means a team of your own investors. They're doing public markets investing, they're doing private market investing, they're doing venture, everything. And the deal making for family offices fallen this year, and investors are waiting for clarity. Private investment firms for the ultra wealthy made 375 direct investments in the first half of 2025. That's a 32% annual drop, according to Fintrix. Family offices are still showing interest in hard assets needed by AI, such as data centers, and are also looking abroad. People in the family office that run these large, wealthy family offices are saying they need to deploy, but they're waiting for clarity around tariffs and geopolitics. They're waiting for clarity before they deploy more capital because they want to understand the implications of what they're investing in. So that's so interesting. So we keep our eye on that. We hit a lot of new stuff. I want to talk about in the roundtable today, just a little bit about entrepreneurship, a little bit about starting your own thing. I think it's interesting to do that, right? Like because I knew someone that's actually going to venture out into the entrepreneurship lane somewhat. And the conversation has brought me back to thinking about like entrepreneurs and what you should be doing, how you should be doing it. And I think the one thing that entrepreneurs need is that hunger, that drive, that passion to what they're doing, right? Like you have to be obsessed with it. Like obsession when you're starting something that is really your own thing that you're really going to rely on. The obsession is a big part of starting something. I think the other thing is adaptability, learning how to change and adapt. Like the first thing that someone starts usually isn't the one that works, right? Like the first thing that someone attempts usually isn't the one that works, but are you able to adapt, make some changes, switch some things up to reach your end goal, right? Like that's another big thing. And last thing is, man, I think those are two huge ones. And even when you get to the area that you want to get to, right? Like continue to keep that hunger within you, right? Like if you got to an area that you're happy with, satisfied, how do you pivot and continue to keep that hunger? That's incredibly huge as well. Listening to yourself and not outside noise. A lot of people have opinions. Don't listen. Trust me, they've never done it, so they won't understand what you're doing. I think those are a couple of good things to think about. I also want to give a tip for creatives. There's a lot of creatives that we serve that are working on different things, whether they're branding, social media, writers, graphic designers. So tips for creative, if you're on your own, independent freelancer, make sure you keep your income consistent by paying yourself um, your share fair due, and also set aside for taxes. Do different things to help you stay financially adapt in all these areas. So those are things that you can think about as creatives. Keep those tips in mind. We'll share more on social media. I know we've been quiet on social. But we'll share more on social media, and of course, we share here every week. So please keep stay tuned to this. Share with your family and friends. We will see you next week.